The honourable member for Cape Breton-Richmond.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. While the investment in rural internet is welcome, and it's welcome, and it's good to see that we do have a beginning investment of $120 million into broadband service across this province. We all know that it is a drop in the bucket comparatively to what is going to be needed to get this entire province wired up. And part of that, getting the province wired up, is also speaking about cell phone service. And now I know that this House has heard me speak again and again about the lack of cell phone service across this province. This is a grave issue, Mr. Speaker. This should not be, in this day and age, a privilege or a luxury, as the member across had mentioned. This is not a luxury, this is a basic service in this day and age. It's 2018, as many of us like to say, and cell phone service is really replacing, for most people, being connected basically to landlines. Now, in my constituency in particular, there are many places that we don't even have proper landline coverage. So not only are we talking about, no access to internet service, no access to cell phone service, we're actually speaking as well about the fact that we don't even have proper access to landlines in many places in Cape Breton-Richmond. This is ridiculous. I'm going to use that word, Mr. Speaker. It's an absolutely ridiculous issue to have in 2018. So the CRTC, as the regulator for cell phone coverage across Canada, we did invite them, or I did invite them to come to speak with me directly. I understand, obviously, they're very far away, but at least they did get back to me regarding the issues in Framboise and Forshoe and Grand River. Saint-Esprit is included in there as well as Loch Lomond. And we saw recently the issue of not having cell phone service in Loch Lomond regarding some really bad flooding that happened and a vehicle being caught in that flood. Had they not had backup radio service, because it was a Department of Transportation vehicle, those people would have been in a lot of trouble. They would have also been in a lot of trouble if it would have been a small car, because a small car could have easily been carried across the road to a hole that exists on the other side of the road where an old mining site is located. The hole is 20 feet deep and about 40 feet across. You wouldn't have found those people for days. Could have been seniors stuck in that vehicle. It could have been a family with children in a vehicle with no backup service, such as a radio service, as the Department of Transportation is so lucky to have. Those people wouldn't even have had access to cell phone coverage. Now, in speaking with landlines, or about landlines, we don't even have a basic right or service to be able to call 911 if there is an emergency in that area. That needs to be rectified, Mr. Speaker. So if CRTC seems to not recognize or understand where on the map Forshoe, Framboise, Saint-Esprit, Loch Lomond, and Grand River are located, I will put it on record today that CRTC wrote me a letter to basically respond, and I'll table that letter. They did respond to my plea to ask Bell Alliant why on earth they can't seem to correct their issue with basic landline coverage. And my response from them was this, and I will quote, "The CRTC has reached out to Bell Canada regarding the outages described in your area. In order to better understand the issues and to inquire about how it was resolving the situation. Bell Canada indicated that this past summer, because of road construction in the area, a chain of telephone poles were moved. The road construction required significant blasting and the telephone poles were impacted several times. Therefore, downing lines in the area at various times over the course of the construction between August 2017 and January 2018. Now, Mr. Speaker, I want to make it clear, I'd like to make it clear, Mr. Speaker, that I believe that if anyone in the areas for which I just mentioned had seen road construction happening, considering the condition of the roads down on the Fleur-de-Lis Trail, we would all be doing backflips. That was road work. So this letter is actually, a regulator is relating to road work that was happening in Victoria, the Lakes, not in Cape Breton, Richmond. We have a severe problem if our regulator doesn't know where to find an area in Nova Scotia that is being effective chronically with landline issues. They're not doing their job properly, Mr. Speaker. And I'm sorry, we need to do better in this House for these people that are without landline coverage and cell phone coverage, but CRTC also needs to do a better job as well. I've heard from many residents who are fearful in these areas, as well as the area in Dundee, where I just received a letter today from a business owner who's made a massive investment in a tourism operation down there in Dundee, that they're very concerned about the lack of internet coverage. Now, again, I will say it's positive to see that there's an investment by this government for internet service. However, I would like to know where the priorities going to be, where that money is going to be invested. What communities, well, that's what it sounds like. I heard Claire Digby is probably going to be on the list. But I have a list here myself, Mr. Speaker, that I'm more than happy to put forward, that there's a lack of internet coverage in Cape Ogat, in Martinique, in Cap La Ronde, in Rocky Bay, in Dundee, in Jamrons Island, the list goes on, and definitely in Dundee, from what the letter here describes from this business owner that has made, again, a massive investment in a tourism operation in Dundee and has no access to both cell phone coverage. Can you imagine trying to operate a massive tourism business, a resort, without access to cell phone coverage and without access to internet, proper internet coverage? That puts that person at a massive disadvantage in rural Nova Scotia in trying to actually compete with the rest of the province. These are basic services, Mr. Speaker, that need to be made a priority. So as much, again, and I will continue to come back to this, it's wonderful to see that investment in broadband services. Where is the investment in cell phone coverage? There is nothing in this budget that even touches on an investment for cell phone coverage. So CRTC had put out a report in 2017 to talk about the fact that cell phone coverage and internet coverage, broadband coverage, are pretty much on par as far as the increase in usage across Canada. In fact, that report even states that cell phone coverage surpasses the usage in internet. So cell phone coverage is in fact well ahead of broadband service as far as it being an important and basic service in the province. Now, I'm not sure about anyone else in this House, but I'm fairly certain that most of us have our cell phones attached to our hips almost every single day. I utilize my cell phone almost as much, if not more, than my desktop computer or my laptop. I get most of my data is on my phone. It puts you, again, at a massive disadvantage not to have basic cell phone coverage. So this is a real issue across Nova Scotia. It's a real issue, Mr. Speaker, in Cape Breton, Richmond. I have heard from so many residents on this issue, and I have to say I'm so proud of them for sending me, within a span of just a couple of weeks, almost 70 letters from business owners, 70 letters from residents. Right? We had a petition that was tabled earlier in the session that had, let's see, I think it was 857 people on it. There's 60 people that live in Forshoe, Mr. Speaker. and the fact that as well that we have furthermore 274 people as well as 327 on change.org. People are looking for help, Mr. Speaker, and this budget does not provide the help that we need in Cape Breton Richmond for cell phone coverage.